So today, and this is kind of coming off the backs of conversations we've had during mentorship hour, conversations that we're having as educators in the industry of electrology. And this also applies to laser hair removal, but I'm gonna go over that as a secondary component because I want this to be like a two-part conversation. Especially since for the longest time, many electrologists simply got lobbied out of their home states of being able to even provide laser hair removal, and it went to service providers that didn't have a background in hair removal. So that's gonna be a whole other conversation, and it's gonna sound like I'm like being over the top, but we really need to talk about this. So I wrote down some of my key assertive talking points in regards to why, as an instructor, I really lean forward when I say that practical application, hands-on training, after a majority of your theory is completed, is important, okay? I understand, as someone that had such a hard time accessing education, and the way I did it kind of cost me a lot more money than I done it initially in my training 20 years ago. But it is so important for me to discuss these points with you that we're gonna pause and we're going to discuss it. So I have 10 little things I want to go over, and I hope that I don't go too far on it, but I did definitely write it down so that I didn't lose my train of thought. So why is it important to do practical in person for a longer format? And when I say longer format, I am not talking a 2-day training. I am talking 120 hours to 400 hours of hands-on at minimum. When you think about coming from a different allied industry is when I would say the lower ones are okay. But when you're coming from never have done hair removal before, those higher numbers are what we should be hitting, okay? When it comes to your hands-on. And I understand the pause and change that would cause in someone's life and the disruption. But many of the schools, like myself, will adjust your training schedule to meet the needs of you being able to continue working and continue earning an income if that's what you need to do, okay? So just table that in the back of your head and understand that's what I'm talking about. So precision and dexterity is gonna be at the top of this, right? So why do we need to do the practical side of electrolysis? It is because electrolysis is a highly tactile skill that requires simplified, very close hand movements, steady hands, careful insertion techniques, because if your insertion ain't there, the hair's not gonna die, okay? So they're best and only currently able to be learned through hands-on training in person. The reason I say hands-on training in person is because there's so many people thinking, this looks really easy. My electrologist makes this look super simple. I'm gonna go on YouTube and I'll figure it out there. And the fact is the reason your electrologist makes it look easy is because they have honed their skill day in and day out for hours on end prior to ever becoming your electrologist. Additionally, we call it an electrolysis practice because you are practicing every day of your career to make you better and better and better. Even in my 20 years of being an electrologist and 21 years of being a laser tech, I will tell you that I have gotten stronger each year of my practice, basically fine-tuning and honing out skills that no longer serve me through the practical hands-on application, okay? That tactile learning obviously is a significant component because we need to be able to feel the resistance of the filament going into a follicle, and we need to feel the resistance of a potential hair coming out of that follicle if treated incorrectly. For you to not have an instructor over you, oversight, not right over the top of you, but in the building, for you to actually bounce questions off back and forth, it gets exponentially harder to get better at your skill early on in your career, okay? So this is real-time feedback when we think about that. So that real-time feedback allows for real-time adjustments. Something happens and you're like, God, that doesn't look like it should have looked, or felt like it should have felt when I had electrolysis previously, or when I've seen it online. Why does it look the way it does? Well, because that real-time feedback hasn't been given early on in your career. Building client communication interaction skills is difficult. Many people do not do one-on-one interactions at this level in their day-to-day careers. They might do it behind a computer screen, they might do it in a customer service base, but we are taking not only a clinical side of things, when it comes to the application of it, but we're taking a customer service side of things to be able to build that together. And in school, you start to learn what those interactions might look like and find out how to discuss your new skill with a person who is willing to pay you to do that skill. This is very important, but in person allows you to expose yourself to diverse skin types and hair types. When you go online and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go find the biggest, baddest hairs to go after in my training. While easier to treat, they are not the ones gonna pose you difficult circumstances down the road. Skin types, from my skin tone to darker to lighter, they all react differently. Knowing whether or not it's normal and to be expected as clinical endpoint, meaning what we expect at the end of a service, comes from an instructor being able to say yes or make an adjustment on the fly when you see something that is going adverse really quickly. Then from there, we learn by doing. Okay, so if you don't have the diverse skin tones, hair textures, client conditions like contraindications in front of you to do them in a learning environment, your hands-on experience becomes harder then. Safety and efficiency, infection prevention, while you can learn it online, it is easier every day to have somebody say, yes, that is a step you needed to do. No, you need to modify it to do this way. Incredibly important. Your confidence development, that fake it till you make it might help in your first few weeks of electrolysis school because you're like, I've got this. And inside you're like, I don't have this. If you have someone to cheerlead you, from your classmates to your educators to your family, it becomes harder to be an involved learner. And a practice of any type needs to have an involved learner. You need to be engaged in the content in front of you so that when you are feeling like your confidence needs a boost, you can look to the people you trust in these spaces to say, yes, you are doing great, or it's okay, tomorrow is going to be a better day. That is a very hard thing to do. It is a very hard way to cheerlead yourself. Mastery of insertion techniques is difficult, and there are different types of ways to go about doing a practical application depending on your own body's body type, depending on the body types in front of you. So say, for example, different size body patients, different size body technicians, different types of tables, different types of chairs, different types of machines and carts. All of that comes down to getting you better into that follicle, right? I am a shorter individual. The way I work is going to look much different than my taller components in life, okay? And that's because for me to be able to reach a foot pedal and the top of the chair and the tabletop and your body means that I have to find a beautiful synchrony ballet between all of this, okay? So it needs to come together. And then lastly is your long-term career success is heavily dependent on the connections you make in school, between distributors, between classmates, between organizations, professional organizations for continued education, between staying advanced in your updates with like research, development, treatment techniques, machines that are coming out, filaments that you might be encountering, new products that you might be developing along your career. All of this comes down to what you start to connect in that environment. Even as an educator, it is me relying sometimes on Google to find an answer because the answers were never documented well in the past. And the stuff that was well documented, those educators are long gone. Those books are no longer always relevant, and it makes it hard. So being in person allows you to have someone that knows what to look up online to find you those answers in a way that takes a little bit of stress off of you when you're just starting out. So all of this to say, when I get a message that says, why do I have to do that much hands-on? Or, are you sure? Is there any way for me to do this virtually? Can you do a Zoom with me virtually? I'm gonna tell you, no. And the reason I'm gonna tell you no is because I want to see you succeed, okay? And I know a lot of my electrology colleagues that are educators have the exact same feeling, which is why I'm utilizing my voice in this moment and the platform that I have to be able to discuss it with you. I hope that you understand that this debate on this topic does not come as aggressive. It comes as, I care about your future in this career, and I want you to succeed. So, open those ears, sign yourself up, and get in the classroom. Peace, love, and hair removal. Have a great day. From Steph.